Welcome everyone, this is a Workshop Wednesday and we thought it would be a great opportunity to introduce our legend club builder Nuno, who is going to run through a driver build with you. So we have today a TSR, what head do we have there Nuno? A TSR 2 9-degree, and we're going to fit this driver with another legend, Fujikura Ventus, Ventus Black 6X. There we go, and the spec for this build, it's 45 inches, D2.6. We were looking for a frequency of about 6.8 to 7.1. Now we know the playing characteristics of these shafts, and this shaft is not going to require any tipping at all. One thing to highlight about the Ventus is there's a lot of stable material or velocore in the tip section, and actually by tipping the Fuji Ventus and by removing the velocore, you can actually soften this shaft. So we're going to keep the shaft untipped and go with a straight installation. So the first part of this build, Nuno will be just scratching off the paint layer down to the exposed graphite. It makes sure that the bond is as strong as possible. Adhesive strength on paint alone is pretty poor, so any shaft has to be abraded or tip prepped to ensure a secure bond. Cutting to 45 inches. I'm just deburring the butt of the shaft. And what Nuno is now going to do is dry assemble the club and do a rough calculation of what the end swing weight is going to be at that length with this particular grip, the multi-compound +4. So we have D2, bearing in mind, and we are very particular, there is still the plastic on the head, which is going to affect the swing weight. Nuno, would you say about half a point for the plastic?
Yeah, we got 4 top layers and 3 bottom.
Okay, so we're going with, as Nuno just said, 4 top and 3 bottom, so the two will kind of cancel each other out. So we're looking for D2.6. Nuno, will you be adding any additional weight to this driver?
I'll leave it like that.
No, so we're just going to pure the shaft, install it with no additional weight at 45 inches. That will go above D2.6, but with the grip tape and the cellophane coming off, that'll drop down to around about, hopefully, D2.6. Great, so let's head over to the puring machine. I forgot to add that this was in the neutral and flat setting of B1. Here we go. So we load the shaft into the chuck, and the chuck holds the shaft very much like a golfer's grip, so it applies greater pressure to the rear and the front of the chuck to simulate a golfer's grip. It's not a constant pressure. We'll then rotate the shaft to the logo up position, which gives us a controlled test location. Apply a little bit of tape to the tip of the shaft, and this is where the machine will mark the most stable orientation. Nuno is just filling out the customer details. And then just going to log the shaft that we are aligning. This is a technology that's been used quite substantially over the last 20-25 years on all tours, amassing I think over $1 billion in prize money by pured players. Okay, so what we can see is the tip of the shaft has been dipped underneath this load cell, and it's just rolling through its circumference, and that load cell is measuring the force exerted upwards, and that is going to plot a graph. Now if this shaft was perfectly round and straight, that would be a flat line demonstrating constant load, but it's not. What you can see here is the crest of the graph is the point at which the shaft pushes up against that load cell the most, and there's another little crest just to the right of it. So my guessing from experience is that the most stable orientation will be just to the left of that larger crest. So we are applying a tip mass, which basically, I'm saying basically a lot, simulates the club head. and the tip mass will be agitated, and you can see a back and forth motion going round and round. And what we're looking to try and do is we're trying to reduce that as much as possible. Here you can see this pattern, which is, if you zoomed really in, you'd see ever decreasing circles, a bit like the old spirograph. And as the shaft's rotated by very, very, very tiny amounts, that vertical deviation, which is what they call it, will reduce. And once it reduces to within a value that SST has determines the shaft to be pure, and when it starts to increase again, it'll go back to the last place it's tested and drop an ink line which marks the installation position, which will be oriented at 12 o'clock in the club head hosel. So probably just a few more tests to carry out. It's still seeing tiny improvements each time it tests the shaft. Must point out that golf shafts don't need to be pured, but every shaft benefits from being pured. If ever you've picked a driver off the shelf or been to a fitting day and the club has just never felt the same as the one you hit on the day, or if you've wondered why you've bought a seemingly identical driver off the shelf to one of your friends and it just doesn't feel the same, then shaft instability is one of the reasons for the difference in feel and performance. And ultimately what it is designed to do is it's designed to make sure that shafts perform for the reasons they've been selected. There's no point in us fitting you with a shaft that is the optimal weight and bend profile, but shaft instability is causing a slight push or a pull. Less so important, well, I guess it's important for golfers of all abilities. The better player can feel if a shaft is inducing a particular shot shape, but higher handicap golfers just want to swing the club. So if they can't feel or have less feel for what the shaft is doing, they can't make compensation. So you could argue that actually puring equipment for the higher handicap golfer is as important, if not more important. So Nuno's mixing up some structural adhesive, and he's just wet the inside of the ferrule, which is the connecting piece between the shaft and the top of the hosel. The reason why we wet the ferrule is because if you don't, through constant hitting, the ferrule can start to work its way up the shaft. So minimal amount of adhesive used. The last thing we want is the adhesive going up past the hosel, which can create a shear point. And we've got to D3.8.
Yep, you want the plastic off?
Okay, and when we take the plastic off and apply the top three bottom grip layers, the club should be pretty much spot on the fitter's recommendations. Also might add that this swing weight scale in our workshop is calibrated, well actually the two swing weight scales, calibrated with the swing weight scales that you can see out in our fitting bay. So when a fitter recommends D2.6 out there, rest assured it'll be exactly the same inside the workshop. So the club is now resting about 10 minutes and this will be ready to grip, and we will see how well the Maestro has done. So here we go, the adhesive is now dried and Nuno is going to head over to the gripping station to grip with the equivalent of 4 layers in the top hand and 3 layers in the bottom hand. Now depending on the size of the butt of the shaft, that doesn't necessarily mean it will be 4 layers. We're going to look at how the tape overlaps and make a call on how many layers it needs. Just applying the second layer. Rolling the tape smoothly down the outsides just to ensure there's no crease. Going with the third layer. And Nuno doesn't start the tape at the same point. If we just zoom in closely, we can see he slightly staggers the layers at the bottom, so when the grip goes on, there's no shelf. You can see there, just slightly staggered, which means that the grip, at the very end of the grip, it tapers off nicely. We're going to go with one more, or is that good?
I think it's good.
Cool.
4 layers.
So what Nuno is gauging is, you can see with the tape layers, if I can focus correctly, where they join. We're looking at the gap between the tape layers and using that as a reference point for grip size, because shaft profiles vary, and the way you can change a shaft profile is through the diameter of the shaft. One layer of tape on one shaft could be completely different to one layer of tape on another. So we build up tape layers to compensate for the differences in butt diameter. Grip solution, grip on, making a very rough adjustment of the grip there, and what Nuno will then do is set the club down to make the final adjustment, ensuring that all the reference points down the grip line up with the middle of the shaft. Wiping off any excess grip solution. Then it'll just be the final, removing the SST installation line. Let me just take that from the bin and show you what it looked like. It's just a little, oh, hang on. I've run out of hands to focus. There we go. So there's just a little mark that's dropped in ink just to show us where to install the shaft. Nuno's just now turning the ferrule, rotating the head in the opposite direction to the belt, which shaves down the plastic ferrule that joins the head and the shaft together. There we can see. So that is basically just, again, basically, note to self, stop saying basically. This is a cosmetic piece, but it really does. It's the bit that can make a club look properly finished or not assembled very well at all. We're just using some acetone here, and that melts the top layer of the plastic to give it a nice mirror finish. Very good, Nuno. Okay, now moving back through, taking the cellophane off the head.
I didn't catch that. Could you try again?
And my Apple Watch is clearly listening in.
I'm not sure I understand.
Okay, and we are at D2. I'll give you D2.3. We need to do D2.6. 0.3 is an exceptional build away from the target frequency. Nuno, I think you've done very, very well, and I'm sure the customer will be very, very happy. Join us next time, and remember guys, if you like this video, there's many more on our YouTube channel. Please do support us by clicking the subscribe button, like, and hit notifications so you don't miss another episode, and we will see you soon.